Travis went good, so despite the poisoning I'm getting here at the shelter, I'm carrying on to help educate and pull you out of the darkness of blindness that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has put you in. So I've done a series with playlist about fast facts of LDS Church history, and it can be confusing if you don't understand that Brigham Young is a completely separate religion. He claims to be a successor from Joseph, but is not, as one of the fast facts helped illustrate for you. And so what you do is you take those facts from church history and you gather them together, you identify patterns, and when an anomaly comes up, you develop a theory that can be tested for confirmation or denial. And in so doing, you'll find more knowledge in that process when you get confirmation. And so, for example, Canandaigua, New York, 9/11/1826. There were two people in history of America and in church history that play the foundational role, as I've talked about. And that is that William Morgan was in the Canandaigua Lodge working on his book, and thus needed to go to the tavern for meals and a beer every once in a while. And he had been fronted the money by the Batavian Press, where his home was, and his family. But while he was working in Canandaigua, New York, at the lodge. It was the York Rites Lodge of Freemasonry, with the Knights Templar as the highest rank. And so when it's a fact that Joseph Smith Sr. is the Master Mason of that lodge, that Joseph Smith Sr. knew of William Morgan, knew of the book he was writing because he was helping him. And then you have to put those facts in your equation for any conclusion that you're making about church history. And so the woman who wrote a book that Joseph Smith Sr. was a drunken bum and that Lucy Mack was the glue that held the family together, well, you can now dismiss her book as a fraud. Similar to Mackenzie Danzin, is that her name? As I found out yesterday, that new name Noah was personal friends with her and had found out that she had lied about the rape by the MTC president and the subsequent assault, poisoning, and fire of her vehicle. And so a lot of times, if you don't do the background research, you can be deceived by people who you want to trust and who you want to believe in. And there are too numerous a number of authors who fall into that category. And that's why it's important to fact check people, especially with such a vital, important information as this. As we are born and raised in the church, we kind of need to know what we're getting into, what we're born into. And so you can't dismiss the facts just because you don't like them, just because they don't fit your theory. If you don't have the right premises for your theory, your conclusion is automatically wrong before you even make a conclusion. And you have to be able to test for confirmation, just like a seed. You have to test the seed to confirm it's going to be good fruit that is produced from it. If you don't run the test and plant the seed, then it's worthless. Why are you even bothering? Why are you wasting my time telling you it's true when you haven't even bothered to try the experiment and run the test? And so when William Morgan disappears, he's not able to finish his book. The Batavian Press published a book in his name only to make up the money that they lost investing in him. And so what happened? Did the book just not get published? Or wait a minute, Joseph Smith Sr. had a son who then comes out with a book not too many years later. Yeah. And so again, you have patterns and then anomalies, and you test to see what it comes out of it, see what the truth is. And so you can say, oh, well, Joseph Smith Jr. lost 116 pages and they had to be rewritten. Well, when you already know that there are over 36 different contemporary artists that have been utilized within the book, it's a pretty good idea that it's being written in real time and is not from ancient documents. As Joseph Smith himself, in his history, says that all those angelic visits are visions and not actual reality. And so that changes the interpretation of all of them as a result, because they're not literal history. And for the church to call it literal history and replace the personage with Jesus. So yes, that was Willard Richards who did that. And the Joseph Smith papers reveal that to us. This is a fact. You cannot dismiss it, whether you're Mormon or ex-Mormon, just because you want to pursue your conclusion that you came up with. You know, it's a fact that Joseph Smith Jr. was not a polygamist. And ex-Mormons have a difficult time with this. They refuse to accept the facts in the matter. And then even the Mormons refuse to accept the facts because they're okay with Joseph being a polygamist. They justify it and excuse it and allow it because it's got to be practiced in the millennium, in the coming days. And so you then check linguistic science, for example, as one avenue to find out, okay, who's the major author of the rewritten 116 pages? You find out it's Joseph Smith Sr. And you can test for it because, well, in Vermont, he was a part of the New Israelites. And being a part of the Yorkites Freemasonry, those two are found within the rewritten 116 pages, 1st and 2nd Nephi. And everything that goes with his education and with the Jewish mysticism of Kabbalah from the New Israelites. And then the Temple of Solomon that is talked about what Nephi builds in the Promised Land. And you keep on going and going and going, and you find more that confirms your theory, your test. And that's how I keep doing it. And so, as I found out about the Danites, for example, I keep running tests, and I've done the videos, and I go, oh, we found a Danite. And there you go. It now fits into the theory test as a confirmation. Even before this, going over the scriptures and the Doctrine and Covenants as 16 is a fraud. It wasn't by Joseph Smith. It was by Willard Richards, who added it in later and put it in the time frame right before the Mormon War that was caused by the Danites. And so all the way up to 19, maybe, I'm going to have to check again, but see, 21 and 121 and 122, that's when Joseph is in Liberty Jail because of the Mormon War caused by the Danites, who framed Joseph for it. And so they purposely designed the scriptures as they put in those scriptures the year before Brigham Young died. They didn't even want them in their scriptures. And so you can see how late of a composition this was, which confirms when you see 116 in the original manuscript, you've got brand new ink at the bottom and the old faded ink that is even crossed out. And they gave up working on that little booklet for further writing. You can tell that somebody had gone back in many years later with new ink and put in additional information and claimed that it was back in an anachronism time frame. And so when you get to section 119 about tithing, it's also in that same time frame. It's also in that same section of scriptures, but it was put in Brigham Young's Doctrine and Covenants right after Joseph Smith was murdered. And so how do we explain this anomaly? You run the test, and you go, oh, okay, that was Brigham Young's economic order that he wanted to have practiced. He didn't like what Joseph Smith was doing. Thus, right before, in 1837, the Kirtland Safety Society failed because the Danites purposely sabotaged it. They withdrew too much money and didn't pay back the loans and crashed the Kirtland Safety Society. And Joseph Smith got blamed for it because of what the Danites had done to sabotage it. And so now, do you see how facts play a crucial role in finding out the real church history? Just because you find a journal and some woman confesses that her child is of Joseph Smith, and then you run a DNA test and it comes back as no marker for the Smith family, do you continue to maintain that Joseph Smith was a polygamist? Or do you trust the facts and the science and dismiss the falsehoods that come from it? You know, I know the church says, yes, Joseph Smith was a polygamist. Well, why would they say it when clearly he's not? When there's multiple evidence that he's not. Multiple facts. Well, it's because Brigham Young was a polygamist. The Danites were polygamists. Those are facts. And so for them as polygamists to then accuse Joseph Smith as polygamist, because Joseph Smith was the founder that they claim to be the authoritative legal successor of, they have no choice but to frame Joseph to justify their position. And that should help you recognize truth from lies. That a person's statement is not a fact. It's their opinion. You have to find the physical evidence and find the facts, establish the facts. And by doing that, you learn the truth. And the truth will set you free. But you'll realize all the lies that are going on around with the church. And the church loves it because it distracts from the truth that I expose and that they've obviously don't like and have punished me for. So, you know, as much as people will threaten you to lie about the truth and tell you to deny it, you really can't. I can't. Because it's not my opinion. This is the truth. These are the facts based on the evidence. And I cannot deny them.